And thank you for joining us. I am Tamara Scott with Truth for Our Time. It is Wednesday. You're halfway through the week. Half down, half to go. And so you can change the rest of the week. If it hasn't been good, you can determine the rest will be great. And if it's been great, you can be grateful and enjoy the rest even more. We've got a great show for you. To be fair, we pre-tape this week. I am in Memphis, Tennessee for RNC meetings. Many of you know that I also serve as the National Committee Woman for Iowa, though I do this job as a private citizen and host on Truth for Our Time with Tamara Scott. So just to be clear, so those of you who may be calling in on Wednesday, we won't be answering. And at the same time, if you're listening now just by chance, you're welcome to call in now. That phone number is always 855-244-0077, 855-244-0077. I'll be surprised if anybody's out there because it's a new time. We're not usually on at this time as we pre-tape. Joining me first off the bat is Cheryl Sullenger, if I'm saying her name correctly. She's from Operation Rescue. Operation Rescue is a pro-life organization. I happen to be reading through a document, an update that came through, and actually it was an article that if you ask for public records, you're likely to get sued. This was from WorldNet Daily, and I was reading through it. More and more we're seeing this as people try and find information out. And so this came out of Maryland. Well, let's just go to actually to Cheryl, and she can maybe guide us through some of this article. Cheryl, thank you for joining me.
Well, you're very welcome. It's my pleasure.
And thanks for the work that you do on behalf of unborn American children and children everywhere.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. It's actually a great honor to serve in the pro-life movement and to work to save lives from abortion.
So this article I was reading, Maryland courts, and so now there's a lawsuit happening that could have a chilling effect on the pro-life movement. Are you able to kind of discuss this particular court case so that our listeners and viewers can be brought up to date?
Sure. This case was actually filed by the Maryland Department of Health and Mental Hygiene after a pro-life activist in Maryland named Andrew Glenn had made an open records request for public records related to the licensing of abortion clinics in that state. Now, up until just recently, Maryland really had no regulations whatsoever against abortion or any abortion regulations that would hold abortion clinics accountable. But because of a really, two horrendous cases that happened that were related to Maryland, they have enacted a licensing law that requires abortion clinics to become licensed. Now, also they have to be inspected in order to be licensed. So Mr. Glenn had asked for those records, which are supposed to be public. He wanted to see the applications for licensure and the inspection reports related to the licensure, and those are, like I said, traditionally open records. They are open for public inspection, but in this case, the state of Maryland sued him in order to block him from receiving these documents. And we're seeing this happen more and more across the country. In fact, I was sued by Planned Parenthood in the state of Iowa after making an open record request to the Iowa Board of Medicine for public records related to abortionists in that state. And the Iowa Board of Medicine actually informed Planned Parenthood that I had made that request so that they could sue me. Yeah. And, that's going on all over the place.
A couple things here. First off, it kind of cracked me up when I just read even the name of their health. Mental hygiene?
Right, yeah.
I mean, dental hygiene, I get, but mental hygiene, isn't it mental health? Mental hygiene, it just, the terms that they all decide to make, I know there's always some reason behind it and some committee that approved it. It's never just something that they just did haphazardly, so I'm always a little concerned about that. And for those of you listening, if you think that there's any reason the government should be involved in your mental health, I really ask you to think twice on that. It seems to be the fastest area of government growing right now. In Iowa, they're dealing with areas of mental health. They deal with it on issues of whether or not you can carry a gun, which is your Second Amendment liberty. And County levels, the health is some of the fastest growing areas. Budget-wise, it's some of the fastest growing areas. In Iowa, 2008, there was an amendment that came through, and they say we can't do amendments. We just can't get them through. We actually did get one through in 2008, and it was swept through as a housekeeping change, changing the terminology. But basically, if you were adjudged mentally ill, you were no longer allowed to vote. In my opinion, we should not make it easy or more tolerable for the language to be that we can take someone's vote away. And who decides if you're mentally ill? Who decides the criteria that we base that decision on, that we test someone on mentally ill? We've heard Bill Maher on TV say that Christians are mentally ill. So we've heard people we hear in the government talking about Christians as labels that are not very pleasing, that could be quite dangerous. So think about this. Even having the government in your mental health is just not a good idea, period. So mental hygiene, mental health, that one threw me off. And so then, Cheryl, first off, these abortion clinics, aren't all medical facilities licensed?
No, they're not. It depends on what state you're in, but there are several states that do not require licensing for abortion clinics.
For abortion clinics, but aren't all medical, like a dentist, a doctor, an ear doctor, an eye doctor, aren't they usually licensed?
Yes.
And
yes,
so
they are.
So when an abortion clinic that does an invasive treatment, like an abortion, vaginal abortion, shouldn't they be licensed?
In our opinion, yes, they should be licensed, because it's the unlicensed facilities across the country where really horrendous abuses have taken place. Like, for example, with Kermit Gosnell in Pennsylvania, most people have heard of him. His clinic was unlicensed, and it hadn't been inspected for like 18 years. And the medical board there, in fact, turned a blind eye to complaints that were filed by other physicians who treated women who had suffered botched abortions by this man. And because of that failure of the system to exercise their duty to protect the public, Karnamaya Monger, one of Gosnell's patients, was killed, and he was found guilty of murdering 3 late-term babies who were born alive after failed abortions. It was some of the most horrific abuses anyone's ever heard of, and that went on because the state did not do their duty to protect the people by putting regulations and requirements and licensing requirements on these abortion clinics.
And you talk about California, where because of being able to request these open records that Glenn is requesting, you were able to find, I don't know if you specifically or Operation Rescue found out a chain of abortion clinics was owned by someone who was doing abortions without medical license?
Right. And actually, this was Maryland, not California.
Oh,
but
okay.
yeah, we were able to find that out. We did our own investigation. We took our evidence, in fact, to the state of Maryland, and ultimately one of the abortionists was had to surrender his medical license and close his clinic, and another abortionist was suspended for 3 months, which we think was a little light, considering he was operating illegally.
And so you're saying that happened in California or Maryland?
Maryland.
So all the more reason that this court case is important, because this Glenn is from Maryland, correct?
Right, that's correct. And it was through open records that we were able to discover those unlicensed illegal clinics. And so, yeah, Glenn, Mr. Glenn has really no threat. He poses no threat to the abortion staff whatsoever. The Department of Health and Mental Hygiene was concerned that if they released the documents to him, that there would be harassment and violence against the abortion clinic staff. And but they admitted that he posed no danger, and they weren't worried about him. They were just worried about, I guess, other pro-life people that might obtain the documents as well. So, it's really a little bit ridiculous, because the state could produce not one single instance where the releasing of public records caused harassment or violence against abortion providers. So This case, we believe that he is going to win this case, and it's going to go a long way towards protecting the public's right to examine public records. Because when the government starts covering up these records and keeping them from the public, then you have a government that's basically run amok, and it is no longer accountable to the public.
Right.
And that is, the implications of that to our freedom actually are dangerous.
Right. We've lost our transparency at that point. We've lost our accountability and checks and balances. Talking with Cheryl Sullenger from Operation Rescue, we're talking about the possibility, the need, the responsibility to find out open records and what's happening, and making sure that everyone is under the best interests of our health, that all clinics are licensed and that everything's in order. Cheryl, when I read that you had been sued by Iowa, I was most intrigued. We are out of Iowa, and so when you were seeking the records, you went to the Iowa Board of Medicine, and they're the ones who went to Planned Parenthood and told them you had made the request. Is that common? We had never run into that before. We make hundreds of open records requests every year for documents, for 911 records. We make requests of medical boards and health departments, and we had never heard of a case where our request was handed over to a third party, so that for the purpose of them suing us, So that was a little unusual for us. We actually objected to the medical board for doing that because, as pro-life activists, we get our share of threats, and I just felt like that they had put me and my family at risk by revealing to Planned Parenthood that I was the one that had made the request. And so ultimately, the state of Iowa acquiesced, and they gave us the documents, albeit they were redacted, of course, which, we expect certain information to be redacted. We understand that, the home addresses of people in public documents can be redacted, that their Social Security numbers are going to be redacted, and other, personal information like that is going to be redacted. And we're okay with that. We understand that that's the law. But what we are really seeking is for these state and local governments to comply with the laws as they are and issue us the documents. And if they have to redact a little bit, that's okay. But just denying us the documents is actually illegal for them to do that. And so, as I said, I think that this case in Maryland is a pretty important one because we need to preserve the right to get these public records. For example, 911 records, often those reveal very important information to us. We just had a case in Cleveland, Ohio, where we discovered that a patient died from an abortion complication through a 911 record. And now we have investigations ongoing in Ohio concerning that case, but we would have never known that that woman died if it hadn't been for being able to access public records from the 911 officials. So it's really, really important to us as a movement. It's important for the public to understand the truth about what goes on inside of abortion clinics, for these open records to continue to be made available to us. Well, and I'm just really curious. Planned Parenthood, so Iowa acquiesced, but did Planned Parenthood drop their suit against you?
Yes.
And so could you have sued the state of Iowa for giving them your name?
It's possible that I could have done that, but to be honest with you, it probably wouldn't have furthered our cause to do that. It would have taken time and money away from us in order to do that. And they had basically given us everything that we asked for, and we were pretty sure they weren't going to do that again. So there wasn't really any need to go to court for that at that particular time. But more and more we're seeing, though, this kind of thing going on. And like we're preparing to sue another jurisdiction, which I can't really talk about until, in full until we've actually filed the paperwork. But there is one city in the United States that is so heavily redacting all the 911 information that you can't even tell what's going on. And this particular clinic has sent over 24 women to the hospital in a relatively short amount of time. And they're keeping that information from us about what happened to these women. Now, this does not compromise the women's identities whatsoever. It does not compromise the woman's privacy whatsoever to have access to these 911 records. And if the woman's name or any identifying information is in the 911 records, they can easily redact that information out and provide the rest of the record to us. But instead, they're like redacting almost everything. And we're going to have to sue them in order to get the information about what's really going on here. And so it's just really critical because these things can actually result in abortionists being disciplined, being fined, maybe even suspended or revoked, abortion clinics closing, and that means that lives are going to be saved. So this is really not just a minor issue for us. This is a life-altering, life or death situation as to whether or not we are able to get these public records.
Well, and Cheryl, I'm all about protecting the lives of every American, the unborn, and so certainly I think this saves lives. But for those who are pro-choice, you better police yourselves. You better allow this licensing and police the abortion industry yourself before you have more Gosnell situations that really do not help your cause. So not that I want to help out the other team with their right to take the lives of my fellow Americans before they're born, but even those who are pro-choice should understand cleanliness, hygiene, healthiness in the best interest of a patient. Cheryl, for we have to run to a hard break here, but give us the number and the website, because if people would like to learn more how they can ask for open records, we want you to be able to train them and teach them how to do that.
Well, to contact us, it's pretty easy. You can pop over to our website. It's operationrescue.org, and there's a contact number, and our email address is there. People are welcome to call us, and we'd be happy to help anyone file an open records request and get the truth about what goes on at these abortion clinics out to the public.
And these lawsuits back at people may be an intimidation tactic, but I'm telling you, we're at that point in America. It's time to stand up to your government while you still can. And don't let a little bit of intimidation and fear stop you from doing what you think may be the right thing to do. Cheryl, I hope you'll come back when you hear more about that other lawsuit that may yet be happening, and when we get a follow-up to this lawsuit in Maryland. I hope you'll call us, and we'll have you back on to update us on that.
All right, it'd be my pleasure.
Thank you so much. Cheryl Sullenger is our guest. We're going to come back with Robert Knight, American Civil Rights Union, not the ACLU, the ACRU. So stay tuned. I am Tamara Scott with Truth for Our Time.
Hey, psst. Let me let you in on a little secret. You ready? Always try to do business with people, not places, especially if you seek honest Christian business people. And when it comes to my car, I really need to trust who's working on it. Now, my family is so blessed. A few years ago, we found a family-owned automobile repair shop that operates as a Christian business also. Open, honest, reliable, trustworthy. It's AMCO on Hickman Road in front of Kmart, and it's a family-owned Christian operating business. This family treats your car as if it was their car. Everything from oil changes to transmission repair and everything in between. So the next time you feel the need to be at peace with your choice of who you can trust with your car, give AMCO on Hickman a chance to serve you. And tell them Max sent you.
All across America, there are countless numbers of people struggling with addiction and other life-controlling issues. Probably someone you know and love. There is a way out. There is hope. Transformations Treatment Center in Delray Beach, Florida, has a unique approach to substance abuse treatment. Call now and ask about our Guaranteed Success program, or log on to transformationstreatment.com. Transformations. Change your life. Change your relationships. Transform your world.
Get away from us, you mean old credit card. We don't have any more money. We're in trouble now. Save us! Help, somebody save us! Somebody
I'm Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of Des Moines. If your credit card's a little too animated, give us a call.
Hooray, we're saved! Consumer Credit, you're our hero!
And I am Tamara Scott. Thank you for joining us. Our guest was Cheryl Sullenger with Operation Rescue and filing for records, open records. Just one of the tactics that is now coming against those who may be trying to do the right thing, those who may have, whether it's Christian values, whether it's religious values on marriage, whether it's life values. We'll have joining us later Peter Labarbera, who was arrested when talking about pro-life issues in Canada. And we've been warned by Don Stefanowicz out of Canada what happens once we let those liberties and freedoms go. Joining me now is someone who's been in this battle for a long time, a well-respected journalist. Robert Knight is joining me. He's worked with organizations like Family Research Council, Concerned Women for America, and he's now with the American Civil Rights Union. And I slow down when I say that because I too often say American Civil Liberties Union, and they're the ornery group that usually does not do anything positive for our freedoms and our liberties, but they do cost us a great deal as taxpayers when they sue on those rare situations, the one person who wants the pledge taken out or the one person who wants a prayer stopped at a school, and then our tax dollars have to go and fund their lawyer bills if they should win. So I don't want to confuse this. This is the American Civil Rights Union. Robert Knight, thank you for joining me today.
Well, thank you, Tamara, and I'm glad you clarified that because we often get confused, and yet the ACRU was formed specifically to counter the ACLU and other left-wing groups. They're trying to create new constitutional liberties out of whole cloth and trash the ones that are very clearly there in the Constitution.
And we have the numbers we've talked about on our show before, the cost, the millions of dollars that taxpayers have had to pay to the ACLU. So we thank you for what you're doing. And I was looking through you for your bio last night, and so pleased that LaRue is working with you.
Oh, Jan LaRue, she's one of the finest legal minds out there and writers. She writes articles for the American Civil Rights Union, and often they're posted on AmericanThinker.com and townhall.com. You might be in prayer for Jan. She was having hip surgery on April 30th.
Okay.
So she's in recovery for that.
I'll make a note of that. Thank you for letting us and our listeners know. Let's talk. You just wrote an article, You Can Silence Speech Till the Cows Come Home. But it is what we're dealing with, whether it's, they tried to silence Phil Robertson over Christmas, and we saw what happened. Bob, I just think that most Americans are still right on the issues that are important, the traditional marriage issues, but they've been so beaten down, whether it's at their jobs with the threat of a suspension, a detention, a failed promotion, and even the loss of a job. Matt Barber, you and I both know, who lost his job for something he did on his private time. Right here in Iowa, we have a couple, Mennonite, kind, lovely Christian couple, very contemporary, hip folks. She's an artist. They purchased with their own money a church that was beautiful architectural landmark. It was going to be condemned. They restructured it, refurbished it, and she has an art gallery / little restaurant in there, and gives artisans in Iowa a place where they can sell their wares, a darling shop, home shop, floral shop, and a homosexual couple came in demanding that they do the wedding. Now, no respect whatsoever for her faith or her employee's faith, Mennonite, but demanding not that she just do the flowers, which she thought she might be able to do, or that she just do the reception, which she maybe even would have possibly tried, but it would still been difficult to ask her employees to do such a thing. But they demanded that her building host it, and the wedding, the sacred wedding that went against her sacred, deeply held religious beliefs.
I'm surprised they didn't ask them to put up an altar where they'd sacrifice a pig to Baal while they're at it, because that is this serious. This is that much of a challenge to religious freedom in this country. We're being told that you will participate in things that God tells you is sin, and God tells you it's a sin to enable sin and to promote
That's
it.
Right.
And yet, with the power of the government behind them, with these sexual orientation laws, which are just one of the most destructive things ever devised, they are claiming the moral high ground and not only silencing people, but trying to force them to act against their faith. We see it at the highest levels with the Health and Human Services pushing the abortifacient mandate on healthcare providers that are faith-based. That's been challenged in the courts, and Hobby Lobby and Conestoga Wood Specialties are at the Supreme Court with that case. But it's really the homosexual cases that have the greatest capacity to destroy freedoms of speech, religion, and free assembly in this country. It's happening every day. It's picking up speed. It's disgraceful. And it's only happening because many Christians have been silenced.
That's right.
They've been cowed. They're afraid of becoming examples. And I think that's why they targeted Mozilla Firefox's CEO, Brendan Eich, for 6 years ago, giving $1,000 to the Proposition 8 marriage amendment campaign in California, which the people of California overwhelmingly passed, including 70% of black Americans who voted. They say that makes him unfit to be head of Mozilla Firefox because he defended traditional marriage 6 years ago. Now, that wasn't about him. It wasn't even about Prop 8. It was about sending a message to the rest of us that you will fall in line or we will destroy you. This is fascistic. This is tyrannical. It happens in authoritarian states, and it should never happen here in America.
And so not only was it what he thought or his deeply held religious convictions, or he wasn't denying anyone a service. He's never denied anyone a service. Now he can't even do with his own money, his own earned paycheck, what he wishes.
No, that's the thing, and that's what happened to Matt Barber, who was on his own computer. He wrote a column defending marriage on a conservative website, and Allstate Insurance found out about it. He has been working for them as an investigator, and they fired him. And he sued, and he did come to a settlement with Allstate. I think they realized that they had overstepped. But they didn't rehire him. I mean, they didn't make it good, really. And the message goes out.
And the message goes out. That's it.
Yeah.
And so people are silenced, just like our last guest, when they try and sue people asking for open records. And so that brings me to as well. This is not any longer just about the homosexual issue. You brought up the point in your article that this administration wanted to put censorship in every press room. And this did not get more press. I was surprised even then that I thought when was it the AP that had their phones tapped, the media might decide to come out on some of this?
No, they're in the tank for the Obama administration. They don't want to do anything to embarrass his executive agencies. So they're very quiet, even though that was aimed directly at them. This was a study that the FCC was contemplating, and the only reason they pulled back on it was one of the FCC commissioners, the Republican appointee, Ajit Pai, wrote a Wall Street Journal column exposing it, that they want to put researchers in every newsroom in America to probe them and find out how they select news, why they edit the way they do, et cetera. You can't have government agents in newsrooms doing that unless you're in the old Soviet Union or today's Cuba. I mean, that is truly totalitarian. There was enough of a fuss that they backed off of that, but now they're back with something else. Senator Ed Markey of Massachusetts and Representative Hakeem Jeffries, a New York Democrat, have come up with a bill that would have more federal researchers come through all of broadcast radio and television, cable and public access TV, quote, commercial mobile services and other electronic media, and the Internet, looking for hate speech that may have triggered violent acts. Now, this is what they have in Canada. It's called C-250. And they basically shut down any public discussion on the airwaves of the homosexual issue by claiming that it hurts minorities and may lead to violence against minorities. Here are two Democrats in America trying to do the same thing to free speech in our country. I mean, it's not merely crazy, it's evil. It's wrong.
It's incredibly risky. And so Andrea Pelosi from Concerned Women for America joined us on our show last week, and ask us to call our legislators and the switchboard in D.C. And so if you don't mind, I'll just go ahead and give out that phone number again. Now, this is
Please do.
pre-taped. I will be fair with our folks. This is pre-taped, so we'll be about 4 or 5 days past by the time you get this. But the phone number is always the same, and it never hurts them to hear from you. Never. 202-266-3121, 202-266-3121. You can call and just ask for your representative, your senator, and they'll help you patch you through, and let them know you want total freedom. You don't want this policing, this censorship that is taking. This is extremely dangerous. First off, how do you?
And they wrap it up in good things. I mean, they call it the Hate Crime Reporting Act of 2014. And they opened the door to this back in 1990 when Orrin Hatch got the hate crime bill passed that reports statistics on hate crimes. And that gave the hate crime lobby, which is the professional homosexual activist lobby, the grounds to begin cranking out propaganda that there's a terrible epidemic of hate crime all across America against people only because of their sexual orientation. It's a myth. Only a tiny percentage of hate crimes are committed on that basis. And the whole hate crime concept is misplaced because there's no love crime when you hit somebody over the head or you murder them or you steal their property. It's always bad motive. So saying that some crimes are worse because of the status of the victims than others, I'd start with older women or vulnerable children. I mean, if we're going to be assigning penalties that are higher for perpetrators, I'd look to the most vulnerable, disabled people. You commit a crime against disabled, you get a stiffer sentence. Well, that's what judges do. They have latitude in sentencing. But when you bring thought crime into it, now you have to prove that the person had hateful thoughts in addition to hitting the person over the head. And that is thought crime. That's getting into their head. And that should never be allowed in America.
Well, of course, no one knows the heart but God. We just simply can't judge the hate crimes. And you might appreciate this. I wish I had the comic book to hold up to the camera. We used to have something called the Governor's Anti-Bullying Conference, and many of us were quite chagrined even when we had a Republican governor who had his name on that conference. It's recently changed to the Governor's LGBTQ Conference, and this year they're
out front about it.
Yes, and this year there was a comic book held out. While last year, two of the workshops even mentioned my name, Bob Vanderplatz and Jan Michelson, a conservative talk show host here, and Bob Vanderplatz is the head of a pro-family group. Two of the workshops dealt with them personally. If that's not bullying, I don't know what is. This year, the book, the first page of the book, Bob, you open it up and it talks about this assignment. It's a cartoon, much like they did before World War II when they had to build the sentiment against the Jews. They drew them in very unseeming pictures and in a very negative manner. So here you have this book, and it says, what is your assignment? It's a belief book, which looks much like a Bible, by the way. And when you turn the next page, it says, in the book, we write out our values, and we turn it in at the end of the year. Now, you're talking about censorship in the media and in the newsrooms. Bob, this is in the classroom. Can you imagine?
No, this is clearly violating the First Amendment, because what it's doing is telling these children that the beliefs that their parents are teaching them in church and their pastors are teaching them are out of line with what the government wants. And so that's an establishment of religion. You need a lawsuit there, Tamara, to knock this back. Just to give you encouragement, in suburban Maryland, outside Washington, D.C., Montgomery County, they tried to use a Just the Facts book or a booklet that was put together by homosexual activists and a whole range of left-wing groups. And it openly attacked the views of Southern Baptists, saying that they held these views and their vestiges of superstition or something. I mean, it trashed Christian values regarding human sexuality. And so PFOX, Parents and Friends of Ex-Gays and Gays, which supports families that are struggling with homosexuality, sued and said this is an establishment of religion. The federal judge, an appointee of Bill Clinton, ruled in favor of PFOX and said, you're right. The schools can't do that. You're establishing one point of view and saying others are no good. So if you can't promote, say, Christianity in schools, you certainly can't promote attacks on Christianity in schools. This sounds like what's shaping up in Iowa is very similar.
Well, absolutely, and I don't know how it would do at our Iowa Supreme Court, since they are the ones who stepped outside the constitutional limitations of separation of branches and made law in 2009 to do away with our DOMA, not only doing away with DOMA, but now changed the law that same-sex marriage was okay. So I don't know how we would do in a lawsuit on that, but you're absolutely right. I think there is an assault and affront. And I haven't even told you the rest of the book, where they don't say Bob Vanderplatz this year. They say Bull von Plutz. And they make him out to be a villain and again, paint him in a very dark light. I'll see.
This is given to children in schools, in government schools.
It is for the LGBTQ conference. 1,000 kids are said to have gone, and these, I think they had to buy.
It's given out at the conference.
At the conference.
Not handed out in the school.
Nope,
right?
And they had to pay $12 for the book, so that might be their out as well.
It probably is their out, but it's a personal attack.
Absolutely. And for any kid to think that it's okay that your values have to be in any way turned in or under the supervision or submitted to school officials should frighten every parent.
Yeah, there was a federal law in the books that said children couldn't even be coerced into taking a questionnaire about their sexual views. That's been on the books for a long time. It's never been removed. This is right up there. And the schools have no business prying into their belief system. I mean, this is brainwashing 101.
Now, we're running out of time, and I would love to ask you about the Clippers situation because.
Sure.
Let's see, Ryan. Do we have time? Do we need to go to a hard break? We got just a couple minutes here. So we have, as we understand it, someone saying something that none of us appreciate, none of us agree with. But can a commissioner take away his ball team? Can they ban him from ever coming to another game?
Yeah, they can. It's the NBA is a private association. It's not a government agency. If they want to bar somebody, they can do it. They can take his team away. It's a voluntary association of owners, so they can do it. What disturbs me is, number one, this guy was a sleaze. I mean, he was cheating on his wife with his mistress, about 50 years younger than he. He did make racist comments. I happen to think some of them have been taken out of context because he was embarrassed she was bringing lovers,
right.
it appears, to these games and flaunting them. And so that's what that conversation was mainly about, I believe. It doesn't mean he's not a racist and hasn't made other objectionable remarks, but it is disturbing that a private conversation is blown up into a national scandal whereby someone is fined $2.5 million, basically driven out of polite society, and the next thing is they're going to hang him up in stocks and beat him or something. I mean, again, it's not about him. It's about sending a message to the rest of America that if anybody is uttering a contrary opinion to what the establishment has said is the only right opinion, then you will be destroyed. We'll take you apart. That part scares me.
Yes.
It's not that this guy's a good guy.
Right.
It couldn't happen to a nicer guy. But it's what it does to the rest of us and our freedom to speak and share our beliefs. Even
in a private room at this point, from what we hear.
Even in a private conversation. It's just, that in communist China, they would take people out if they uttered the wrong thing and put dunce caps on them before they took them out and executed them. I mean,
now, I'm no sports fan, and I have not followed this at all. So, but just let me say, what if? What if somebody was wanting to buy that sports team? They needed to create a scandal. What if somebody knew that conversation was being taped? If the only two were in the room were her and him, what if this is a Delilah Sampson situation where they use her to get to him and weaken his position, and now all of a sudden he has to sell? The stock's going down?
The Bible says your sin will find you out. So he made himself vulnerable to that sort of blackmail by his terrible activities, his immoral lifestyle. But, it does open the door for somebody taking the team away. Yeah. I don't think that was, that might come out later, but I think it was more her. Yeah, because he wanted stuff back from her and then charged her with embezzling. Apparently bestowed Bentleys and other luxury cars on her and hundreds of thousands of dollars, and then they had a falling out, so she said something about getting back at him. So it looks like a lover's quarrel in public that became a national sensation.
Quite costly to boot. Bob, I think you hit the nail on the head. If we live right, The Bible talks about the golden rule, and that could change so many of these hate crime situations, so many of the bullying situations, if we just treated other people as we want to be treated, and if we taught those precepts that we first came through our teachings of our founding fathers by talking about the Bible and Jesus Christ. Bob, we are out of time. Thank you so much for joining us today. Bob Knight with the American Civil Rights Union, the ACRU. Is it .org?
.org.
All right. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks for having me on.
You're welcome. I am Tamara Scott. We'll be back with more Truth for Our Time right after these messages.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I'm Brian Leach, owner and general manager of Service Legends. I brought along a couple of the home comfort heroes.
Hi, I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wondershot.
I'm administrative manager
I am the senior technician
from Service Legends.
It seems like every good thing, when you feel it to the bone that it's good, there's a lot of hard work put behind it. I don't think that you can fake it and have it turn out good.
You know, if we seem like, okay, that's just weird, it's just a furnace, why would you believe so deeply in a furnace? It's not just that, you know, we want to show the world that you can have good service.
Yeah, I mean, it's your home.
You know, it's built into our daily trainings, it's built into our culture, that we're gonna do whatever it takes to have each client say they love us, period.
That's why we spend all the hours in the training that we do. And if we guarantee it's gonna be a good experience for you, or else it's free, what type of work do you think we're gonna do?
There is a guarantee.
Temperature selection guarantee, fixed right or it's free guarantee, comfort guarantee, best value guarantee. All of these guarantees hold us accountable to ensuring that we exceed your expectations. And if for whatever reason we'd fail and we can't make it right, we guarantee all of those guarantees with a 100% money back guarantee.
I mean, if you don't think that your technician can fix it right, are you gonna say that to a client? No.
You don't have to worry about having a technician come to your house.
We drug test, background check all of our team members. We put safe people in your home. Each and every one of our service techs, 400 hours a year in training.
You tell it the minute they walk in the door. They know what they're doing, they've done their homework, and they actually truly care about what you want.
Because at the end of the day, you're the person that makes sure I have a job.
They're gonna be listening. They're gonna wanna know what your challenges are. Then they're gonna come and give you options, and you get to choose.
If I'm there to help and I make it easy and painless, I did my job right that day.
Well, when it comes to your comfort, safety, and your family, you know, you don't necessarily go buy the most expensive, but you get the most bang for your buck.
Oh, it's worth it, because there's a lot of people that will find a way to get it to work right now and then leave and then come back, charge you again, and the cycle just repeats itself. So when I'm out there looking at the furnace, I want to find why it failed today. How can we change the part today with something that you're not going to have to worry about? Is it worth changing the part today? I mean, you can put a lot of money into a furnace. I can fix parts all day. There's good job security in that for me, but is it the right thing for you?
I get a lot of the phone calls of after the technicians are there. They're just in awe. They're like, wow, you guys are great. I mean, I don't even know what to say. You guys are great. Everything you did was perfect. It was great.
Keep going though, I like this.
Just give us a try. I'm gonna take all the risk.
I've got the time to make this right. I've got the support to make it right.
Just check us out.
And if you don't see the value in what we do,
I mean, fixed right or it's free or 100% money back.
enough said.
And thanks for staying tuned. I am Tamara Scott. You're listening to Truth for Our Time. We are powered by webcastonelive.com, webcastonelive.com. And go to that website, check out some of the shows that are also from the studio, Recovering Hope or Restoring Hope, some of those great shows that help you find freedom and liberty. Joining me now is Peter Labarbera, and Peter Labarbera has his own tale to tell about silencing those who have opposing views. And the point I want to make is that it was, or it used to be, just the fringe. Much again like World War II, and people get really antsy if you even reference World War II or the Holocaust. But they started with those who society was okay with us doing away with or putting behind bars or taking out of society's realm to somehow limit them. And then it started going more and more into others. And so this used to be those fringe that we thought were being silenced, but many more are now being silenced. And it's not just the homosexual issue, it's the pro-life issue. We now see that the internet may not be, how did they word that on this article? Internet becomes internot for pro-lifers. The internet may not take sides on abortion debate, but Google sure has. The mega corporation must be going Mozilla in political censorship. they've learned to silence speech in the name of liberal activism, and so it talks about certain posts, NARAL pro-choice, the search engine announced that it was banning ads from pregnancy resource centers or supposedly violating the policy on deceptive advertising. Wow. If they're going to ban deceptive advertising, I look forward to seeing all of the diet products and everything else that are no longer on the internet. And first, I want to take time out to thank Crave, Christians for America. You can find them at Christians, the number 4 America, for being one of our sponsors and making us available that we can be in front of you each week. But I want to jump now to my guest, Peter Labarbera. Thank you, Peter, for joining me.
Hey, Tamara. Hey, thanks for having me on.
And your group is Americans for Truth?
Yeah, Americans for Truth about homosexuality, and the website is Americans for Truth, all written out, FOR.com.
So your group dealing with homosexuality was probably one of the first groups to face some of the persecution, censorship, and hostilities in silencing those with opposing views. We've seen it. We've talked about Matt Barber earlier on this show. But you're now seeing it in other areas as well. On the life issue, we just had a guest on earlier today, Cheryl Sullenger from Operation Rescue. Those who are requesting open records are now being sued themselves on requesting that information. There is a push. Condoleezza Rice was supposed to speak at Rutgers University for commencement, and there was a group trying to silence her, not because of life issues, homosexuality. They just don't like her views.
Right. This is the whole trend, and the left has been doing this for a long time. And, we have to I think we have to go back to totalitarian and communism. The left is, as Bob Knight was saying, and Bob used to be my boss, by the way, at Family Research Council, as Bob was saying, that this comes out of the left, Mao, the terrible thought police, the murders, people targeted, sent off to gulags. This is largely, in the modern world, this has been coming from the left. So we shouldn't be surprised now that the left wants to set itself up as the arbiter of what speech should be heard and what speech should not be heard. And, of course, all the politically incorrect issues, opposition to homosexuality, pro-life, opposition to pornography, are the ones they want to censor.
And I would guess, Condoleezza Rice, I would guess national defense, opposing views on that.
Yeah, sometimes they just go after people they don't like, and they vilify, Bush administration people and et cetera. It's the way the left operates. There really are political sort of public policy bullies. As much as they talk about bullying, they're all about bullying. Look what happened to the Mozilla guy you guys were talking about, Brendan Ike. Come on, he made a $1,000 gift to the Proposition 8 Defend Marriage Amendment in California. I think that was 2008. It passed with 52% of the people. African Americans put it over the top in California, and somehow that's something that would disqualify him from running the major corporation that he built himself. It's just unbelievable.
When you put it that way, it's quite amazing. He had to step down from one of the organizations that he built.
Yeah, and they did it by, they use these tactics, and they, the gay movement, the so-called gay movement, the lobby, they use these intimidation tactics, on purpose to scare people, and it's been going on a long, long time. I don't know if your listeners could go to just Google on YouTube, Anita Bryant, when a homosexual activist, she was giving a press conference, and she was, of course, crusading against so-called gay rights laws, sexual orientation laws, and she was quite successful, and she was speaking at a press conference, and a very vicious gay activist walked up to her during the press conference and slammed a pie into her face. And to me, that sort of symbolizes what type of tactics this movement uses. Whatever it takes, its ends justifies the means. And if they see that it will serve their end of total acceptance of homosexuality, bisexuality, and transgenderism, Tamara, they'll use those tactics, and they end up scaring people. And unfortunately, a lot of Christians have sort of taken the bait, and they have acted as if they're too frightened to get involved in this culture war. And if they don't get involved, we're going to lose because the other side is going full tilt.
Because the majority of Americans, I still believe, are with traditional marriage and with life. And American Principles in Action, AmericanPrinciplesInAction.org, did a breakdown of this last election. It was not the social issues that cost conservatives or Republicans the elections. It was economics, actually. And those conservative issues, those social issues, are what bring in the minorities, what bring in the independents, and oftentimes what bring in the Democrats. if they can trust a candidate to stand on those. And so we saw it with Phil Robertson, Peter. We saw it when they tried to oust him from AE, and America rose up. All over. There was no get out the vote. There was no political organization that had to get behind it. Nobody had to send out anything to their memberships. Americans just rose up and said, no, not going to happen. He has full freedom and liberty to do what he wishes. AE backed down. Cracker Barrel, within 24 hours, rolled over and reversed their policy of boycotting. I think that would happen more and more and more if Americans like you, if they didn't have to be intimidated, if they weren't the next ones who might be picked off.
Yeah, and you know what, Tamara, I'll take it a step further. I think Americans would be solidly with us on the homosexual issue if they understood the facts and they weren't blocked out by the media. We have these tremendous statistics. 75% of all syphilis cases involve men who have sex with men. Virtually every case of HIV for males ages 13 to 24. And of course, how does a teenage boy get HIV? Well, now we're seeing that. They're getting seduced by basically 20-something, 30-something predators, and they're getting HIV. But virtually every case of HIV ages 13 to 24 among males is related to homosexual sex. Gay men with HIV are 80 times more likely to get anal cancer than the general population, and on it goes. But the media is basically acting as the protector of the gay movement, and so these facts are not put in the proper context. If it were any other behavior, Tamara, I think there would be a full-scale national mobilization educating people not to engage in that behavior.
I think you're absolutely right. I had the honor of interviewing you about a week ago, and you heard the young student call in from high school and say, I never hear any of this ever in my school. It's always promoted. And at that same day, there was a bill or a hearing going through our state legislature on the synthetic drugs because we'd had a death or two deaths, which were tragic, absolutely tragic. But the point is, they were doing everything they could to take action. And as you're saying, here we have all kinds of issues health-wise that we could be stopping, at the very least educating folks to protect themselves. And instead, and I should have let you know about this much earlier, I'm not sure where it's at in the legislature. I just can't keep up with all the bills that are coming through each session. But one of our homosexual, outwardly homosexual legislators put up a bill that if you knowingly transmitted HIV, you would no longer be held to at least it would lessen the criminal offense of it.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. So yeah, that reminds me of the homosexual activists who are trying to open up the blood supply to practicing homosexuals. And even though we're seeing the health repercussions continue to flow, including a meningitis scare among homosexual men in Los Angeles, Tamara, still they want to. It's all about politics. It's all about what is good for the gay movement, the political gay. And there are actually a lot of homosexuals who oppose homosexual activism for that reason, because if it's not all about you, if you happen to be a homosexual and you're not into all the activism, sometimes we find ourselves, they agree with us on these issues.
And so whether it's Common Core, whether it's gun rights, whether it's national defense, whether it's pro-life, whether it's this issue, Peter, we're losing our ability to speak. We're losing our ability to have our own opinions, and at the very least, as Brandon was the Mozilla situation was pointed out, to give, to fund, to associate with those causes we believe in.
Yes, absolutely. We have to defend. We have to be vigilant and defend our freedom now. The left does want to take away freedom. I saw it in Canada, where I was going to be denied entry into the country, even though I was invited to speak at a pro-life conference. They were going to deny me entrance on the basis of a hate propaganda law, Tamara. And then later I was arrested because we simply spoke out at a college. And so we do have a First Amendment, and Canada doesn't. And I think we need to aggressively do things that boldly make use of our First Amendment, challenge the other side to censor us, and then say, what is this ideology you have? Why are you so afraid of ideas that you feel the need to censor people you disagree with rather than trying to win the debate? And that's what they're all about on the other side.
You just hit it as well. I think it's Galatians. Have I become your enemy because I tell you the truth? And we used to hear a saying at Concerned Women for America, those who, you don't hate truth. Truth isn't hateful unless you hate the truth. Truth is not hateful unless you hate the truth. You and I both know truth wins out when it's allowed to be heard, and that's it, Peter Labarbera. That's exactly why so many are trying to silence the truth in which you speak.
Yeah, and Tamara, the ex-gays are a great example of that. I mean, they're living examples of people that walked away from homosexuality. Do you ever see them in the movies? Do you see a content, happy, productive ex-gay on TV? Never. Only the so-called gay characters are the ones who are treated so honorably, and they're always the most noble character.
So, Peter, just in the last minute of closing, what would you say to the listeners and viewers out there? It is an election year. Maybe this is the time we should be asking people in primaries, where will you stand? And I don't ask them just the simple old, do you believe in traditional marriage? No, what are you going to do about it? The same when they say, I'm going to get rid of the IRS. Well, what's day 2 look like? What's the plan?
Yeah, and ask the Republicans, are you for or against ENDA, the Employment Non-Discrimination Act, which would basically be a federal pro-gay discriminatory law, which would only lead to more persecution of people on the basis of their opposition to homosexuality. Where are they on marriage? Where are they on the GOP platform? Are they talking about homosexuality and so-called gay marriage at all? Or are they buying this line that, we don't talk about social issues because that supposedly is going to get us elected, which is not going to get Republicans elected because you can't out-Democrat the Democrats on social issues. The Democrats are always going to be the most radical. There's not going to be a Republican who's more pro-gay than the Democrats. So it's a silly strategy, but unfortunately, this is where the Republican Party is headed.
I hear what you're saying, and there are many Republicans across this nation threatening to tear up their cards. And to that, I would say, know that there are certain RNC members who have been elected in their states as National Committeemen, National Committee women, chairmen, who do not feel that we need to walk away. They're doing everything they can to hold that line through the Resolutions Committee, through the platform, however they can. But you need to hold that line within your state parties, whether you're Republican or Democrat. You need to hold biblical policy in your parties and in public policy. You cannot separate your Christian walk from the public walk. They are not compartmentalized. It is everything you do. If God expects you to live through it, He's directed you how to do it. Peter Labarbera, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Tamara. Thanks for the opportunity.
AmericansForTruth.org or .com. You're .com.
Either way. Either one.
Oh, excellent. Americans for Truth. I am Tamara Scott. We've given you truth today, truth for our time, and I hope that you will take it, use it, teach others around you with it, make the best of your day while we still can. Be encouraged and never be complacent.